We never know what we will face when we open the door on a new world.
Thousands of solar systems are out there.
The mission of the Enterprise is to seek out and contact alien life.
We desperately want to know others and to be known.
With Star Trek, I'm an immigrant from the Philippines, and I grew up watching Star Trek, and when I first started watching it, it was wonderful because there were all of these aliens and people from different planets and different worlds, and it made me feel like, oh, I'm just one of those. I belong just as much as they belong. I love the adventure, and I think the costumes were such a great reflection of, you know, visiting these other planets and seeing different aliens. I mean, when we think about aliens, do we ever think about what they're wearing? We do, because of films like Star Trek. I'm Celeste Malvar-Stewart, and I'm a fashion and fiber artist, and I'm based here in Central Ohio. I mainly focus on sustainable design. I love working with local artisans and local fiber makers and fiber producers. So one of the wonderful things that I get to do here in Columbus is that I work with local farmers to obtain their beautiful and luxurious fibers to create the textiles that I use to create my fashion. And I'm also an educator, which is part of my mission, to share the knowledge with the up-and-comings. And so I teach at the Columbus College of Art and Design as well. On July 24th, Emily Strand, who is a scholar and a big Star Trek fan, and I will be walking visitors through the Star Trek and Worlds Beyond exhibition at the Decorative Arts Center of Ohio in Lancaster. We'll be looking at construction, the design aspect, who the original designers were, maybe what they were thinking when they designed the costumes, from what perspective, you know, maybe they were thinking about the motion and the reach and the physicality of each piece, as well as the materials.
I got a very brief message from Justin. I'm doing Star Trek. Do you want to do it? And my answer was like, are you kidding me? Of course I want to do it. I wanted to change a little bit of the fit of the uniforms and fabrics.
We are so excited that we are presenting Star Trek and Worlds Beyond this summer. It's open now through August 31st. It's an incredible exhibit of props and costumes from all throughout the entire Star Trek universe, from Paramount Pictures Archives and also in partnership with the Trumbull County Historical Society. The curator for this exhibit, Randall Thropp, is the archivist for costumes and props at Paramount Pictures, and he's actually a Lancaster native. So we have a great relationship with him.
This is actually the 7th exhibition I've done at the Decorative Arts Center of Ohio. I just love working here, and actually at Paramount they refer to this as my testing ground. Here we are in the Midwest, we're in the middle of Ohio, and you sort of get a good barometer as to what people like, what they want to see, what they ask for. Some of the exhibitions that I have done here in the past have gone on to other venues.
There are a couple of pieces, they're like a pair, which are really beautifully created using actually upholstery fabric, and they were made for the Starbase Yorktown Vulcan Ambassador. And they're very Asian influenced. You can see the influence of Asian costume. It's kind of a combination of different Asian aspects because they look kind of kimono-like, you know, being very Japanese, but they also use the fabric, which is called ikat, which is very prominent in places like Indonesia and even the Philippines where I'm from. So it looks like just a fusion of this Asian influence, and it's very layered and very architectural. They're very striking pieces, and the designer for those pieces is Sanja Milkovic Hayes.
Father.
I am not our father.
One of the costumes that we'll be taking a closer look at is the Spock meets Spock suit, which is very exciting for me because the actor Leonard Nimoy actually wore it in Star Trek in 2009. I think the asymmetry reflects the two realms and the two times of, you know, Spock meeting Spock. that idea of they're not aligned, but they somehow still weave well together, and their intersection is still really interesting and intriguing. This particular costume was designed by Michael Kaplan, who is one of my favorite designers, who also designed for Blade Runner. I'm a big fan of that film as well. Fashion is one of those realms that we all know about because we all get dressed every day. So I think it's one of the most impactful areas of our lives. We make choices every day what we'll wear, because I think, a lot of times what we wear is a reflection of our identity, of how we're feeling. There are these different areas of fashion. There's the fast fashion industry, where we'll go to a brand store and we'll buy a t-shirt, or a pair of jeans. And then there's also the artistic aspect of fashion. I'm definitely a slow fashion designer. There's a movement now, and it's been happening slowly over the last 10 years maybe, where fashion designers and makers and creators are starting to slow down. And I think it's a really wonderful thing, because it allows us to mindfully create and imagine what it is that we want to bring into the world. A lot of times we don't know who made our clothes. So for me, one of the more important aspects is knowing where my fibers come from, where my materials come from. So it's part of the supply chain, being very transparent with my supply chain. So I actually go and visit the farms. I have a favorite alpaca named Ray Ray. I love you, Ray Ray. And she's wonderful. She's a little bit older, but she still produces beautiful fibers. Knowing that the animals are happy whose fibers you're using, knowing that the people who are creating and constructing the pieces are happy, the environment is happy. There's something about that energy that I think transfers onto us when we put these garments on. I think it's better for not just society, but the environment and economy. We're supporting local in the best way possible, not just people and farmers, but the animals. It just feels wholesome. There's not that much of a difference between fashion and costume. So if we look at film, costumes play such an important role because we don't really have an idea about the person and their personality and their role really without their costume. Their costume tells us a lot about them, just like us in everyday life. And so that intersection is really wonderful to see in this exhibition because I look at the costumes that the different characters are wearing, and right off the bat you can kind of have an idea. A lot of the costume, they are just made to be worn that one time. So they may not have the best construction, and they may not be made of fine fabric. A lot of times they use upholstery fabric. They'll use glue guns to put certain pieces on the costume where we wouldn't really be able to do that in our everyday clothing, especially if we want to be sustainable, because we want them to be able to be worn multiple times and have rigor, as opposed to some of these costumes. Whatever direction you go in, they are just perfect, because a lot of these costumes, even if they were worn once, they're so powerful, and the impression that you can get from just seeing Spock in that jacket, for example, it's unforgettable. And I think that's the great impact of both costume and fashion.